Hey guys, Dr. Alex here, Punch Doctor, CEO of Punching Power, and today I want to talk about Tommy, the Hitman, the Motor City Cobra, Hearns. I'm going to go over some physical advantages Tommy had, a quick recap of the principles of punching power, and then look at some of Tommy's punches. Tommy has some inherent benefits to generating speed and power, notably his good joint integrity and long limbs. Now, when I say good joint integrity, I mean his joints are tight and stable, not loose or floppy. Tight joints without a lot of slop or play allow the muscles that surround the joint to have more optimal and more even resting muscle tension. If you have good muscle balance, the muscles will be more sensitive to length changes and stretch, so they can contract faster, contract more explosively, and have better stability to manage force transfer at impact. I'll go into more detail about joint integrity and how you can improve your own muscle balance even with looser joints in a future video. Second, Tommy has long levers, giving him a mechanical advantage which acts as a force multiplier for movement and power. Let's quickly review the concepts of the kinetic integrated mechanics I teach on my channel. This is a quick summary. However, if you want to have a longer explanation, please check out my Kinetic Integrated Mechanics reference video and my physics video for more information. There are three main concepts that I want to quickly cover in this segment: the stretch shortening cycle, kinetic chains, and the four phases of the punch. The stretch shortening cycle consists of a quick stretch prior to a muscle contraction to increase the power of that contraction. You'll see this in a golf swing or when you dip down before you jump. This quick stretch primes the muscle for a more violent contraction. This same phenomenon is utilized by power punchers to power their punch, first in their legs to rotate their hips, then in their torso and arm, utilizing the cross-body kinetic chains. This creates a cascade of stretch shortening cycles that starts in the hips, allows the body and arm to accelerate to maximize velocity of the fist at impact. This directly connects the hips and arm for a stronger, more coordinated punch. The missing link in a lot of weaker punchers is poor utilization of these cross-body chains. My program, the Power Punching Blueprint, can help you utilize these chains more effectively. Kinetic chains. Kinetic chains are chains of muscle that course through the body. It's not a singular kinetic chain, it's multiple kinetic chains. Stretching and contracting these chains are the basis of almost every athletic maneuver, whether it's throwing a baseball, swinging a golf club, or throwing a punch. These muscles work together to initiate and transfer force through the body. Leveraging these chains is what makes a difference between throwing a punch and pushing a punch. Specific chains that are typically underutilized in many people when powering a punch are the cross-body chains, including the spiral line, which connects the rotating hips to the shoulder, and the front functional line, which connects the hips to the arm, and the arm lines, which connect the pec and torso to the arm. Eliciting a stretch shortening cycle in these chains with the four phases of the punch is what adds speed and power to your punches. Four phases of the punch. I define the four phases as load, explode, accelerate, and follow through. First, there's a loading of the tissues, an initial stretch of the muscles of the legs and hips. This allows an explosive contraction of these muscles to power the hips into rotation. This quick hip rotation then stretches the muscles between the hips and the torso, creating a chain reaction of stretch shortening cycles through the rest of the body. This ground-to-glove kinetic cascade of stretch shortening cycles travels from the legs to the hips to the torso and to the arm, and then into and through your target. This is how virtually all explosive pros generate their power. It may sound a little confusing if you're new to this. However, if you want to learn it for yourself, I have a simple program that works to retrain and rewire your movement patterns to utilize these concepts and allow you to increase and maximize your speed and power. It's a mechanics program, just like you have pitching mechanics, golf swing mechanics. This is a punch mechanics program. My program is called the Power Punching Blueprint. The Power Punching Blueprint is an A to Z program that not only will help you maximize your speed and power, but also give you a tangible aura of confidence, respect, and self-belief inside and outside the ring that people will feel and recognize, giving you a psychological advantage in the ring and making you a hard target outside the ring. To learn more, check out my website at thepunchdoctor.com. Let's get into the clips. Let's first take a look at Tommy Hearns versus Roberto Duran. Excellent, fun, exciting fight. And I want to start off with a little thing that Tommy does to try to divert Roberto's attention. And you've seen the Prince do it. You've probably seen other guys do it. But look how he moves his arm right here, just to the side, trying to potentially pick up Robert Duran's attention, get him to slightly get distracted, so then Tommy can launch some sort of offensive move, probably a jab, maybe a right lead, right? So moving his arm like that, trying to get Roberto to take the bait. And we'll look at it again. You'll see him move it just to the side, hoping to catch or divert Roberto's attention. If Roberto's attention goes to Tommy's left hand, he's got an opening for the right, or he can flick the jab very quickly to Roberto's head. And Tommy's jab is excellent. It's very fast, and he can really stick it out there quickly, just like that. And you're going to see a lot with Tommy's jab. He uses hip rotation to power it. And you can see a little bit here. It's not the best example. I mostly wanted to show you his maneuver to distract Roberto. However, you'll see a little bit of rotation there. And he's using the deltoid mostly to pop that jab out. And it's not effective in this moment, but you're going to see examples of it being very effective in this fight and others. Here you're going to see an example of Tommy's super quick jab. Let's watch it in full speed, and then we'll watch it frame by frame. Super fast, super sharp, striking like the Motor City Cobra. Let's take a look at it again, and you're going to see him follow the 4 phases: load, explode, accelerate. There's not a whole lot of follow through because it's just a flicker jab. But let's look at the hip rotation. You can see how he straightens out the leg right here to get some rotation. He's got long arms, so he doesn't really have to go from back to front to close the gap. But strong rotation that flicks the jab out. And this one, yeah, it tags Roberto, not that well. However, it's a good example of using rotation to power the jab. Now, what does that do? It stretches those crossbody chains, so he's able to get a little bit more snap on the jab. He's able to power it a little faster by creating stretch and a contraction in those chains. Here's another example of a jab. We'll play it in fast motion, and then I will go frame by frame. This one also has a lot of rotation and some back to front component as well. You're going to see right there, big rotation of the hips, just like you might see in a hook. And that's stretching those crossbody chains, including the pec, which allows Tommy to launch that jab out there even faster, right? It's not a push. He's throwing that jab out there. Now, Tommy's not alone in doing this. I've shown how Bud Crawford does this very well in my Bud Crawford video, which you definitely should check out if you haven't seen that yet. Here's a big right hand that puts Roberto down. Let's take a look at it in full speed, and then we'll go frame by frame. All right, it's very quick. Now let's back it up and go frame by frame. Now you're going to see Tommy follow the 4 phases here: load, explode, accelerate, and there's going to be a follow through as well. It's a big right. You could call it a big right cross. It crosses Roberto's jab arm. It's a short, compact punch. And you're going to see him load his tissues right there. And see that rotation before the arm starts moving, hip rotation. The arm is coming back, creating stretch between the arm and the torso while the hip is moving forward. And it doesn't have to be much, just a frame. Tommy's obviously an excellent athlete. At least he has a very athletic frame and very good resting muscle tension. And that allows him to use just a little bit of stretch. And remember, stretch and contraction powers virtually every human biomechanical movement. It's a muscle stretching and then contracting. Whether it's walking, sprinting, fighting, it's always a stretch and a contraction. And we're going to see that right here to launch this big right cross that puts Roberto down. Relaxed arm, coming back, hip goes forward. Now the arm picks up the contraction. Everything launches forward. big impact, and watch Tommy's hand and arm, and you can see the continuation of the arc trajectory as Tommy's arm moves forward and down. So look at it one more time. Load, he drops his tissues down. Explode, he's exploding with hip rotation, allowing his arm to lag slightly, just enough to create some stretch there that he can contract upon. Everything starts moving, accelerating, big impact, and his arm continues the trajectory through the target. Big punch. Let's look at this left hook that Tommy uses to close the gap and land on Roberto. Now he's a little bit out of range when it starts. However, he uses his left leg to launch his entire body and land a hook, essentially in midair. Now let's look at how he does that. Now, in order to do something like this, you have to use the integrated mechanics. You simply can't use linear mechanics and expect to land with any sort of power in a leaping left hook. And you're going to see him push off of that leg to not only launch him forward, but to rotate his hips at the same time. You're going to see the arm come back, creating stretch between the pec and the arm, where he's going to pick up the tension. He's going to pick up the tension and contract off the stretch right about here as his hips continue to rotate. And there's a continuous line of tension between his hips and his arm in all those cross-body kinetic chains that I previously discussed at the beginning of this video. You have to have that tension in order to land with power while you're moving through the air. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And he continues the trajectory, and it lands on Roberto's head. We'll look at it one more time. Let's look at it in fast motion, and then we'll do it one more time frame by frame. It's very quick. Loads his tissues just throwing the right hand. His weight is already on the left leg. He pushes off, pushing his hips forward and rotating them while his arm comes back, which creates stretch between the arm and the chest and the crossbody chains. Now everything starts to accelerate, continues the trajectory at impact and follow through. I'll do probably in the future a how-to on the gazelle hook, because people on YouTube, they all describe it incorrectly. I'll tell you how to actually do it biomechanically. Here you're going to see some good mechanics from Roberto Duran, just as an aside. Might as well cover this one. I thought it was a good example. You're going to see him follow all the stages, right? Load, explode, accelerate, follow through. And he's going to drop his center of gravity right about here and start to push off almost at the same time. And you can see how his hip moves forward while his arm is coming back, creating some stretch between his arm and his torso. Right about here, everything picks up the contraction. Nice right cross, lands, and also continues the trajectory in the arc that I frequently discuss. Here's another example of Tommy's left hook. You're going to see the same thing, 4 phases. He's going to drop his tissues down right here. Knee is bent, his weight comes down. He starts pushing that hip forward, and his arm is moving back at the same time to stretch those tissues. You can see how weight comes down, hip starts to go forward, arm is stretched. Now he picks up the contraction, accelerating that arm. And it's kind of blurry, but he lands quite well on Roberto right here. Stunning Roberto. Here you're going to see Tommy get a little excited. He kind of throws some arm punches right here. Not a lot of intention on those. However, there's also a big right hand coming up that finishes the fight, which I want to show you right there. His posture in that sequence was a little bit hard to really describe. From the back, it's much easier. Now you can see he's kind of in an awkward position, right? But his weight right here is on his right leg and it's moving forward. And he uses that leg to push his hips right there into rotation. And you can see his arm is sort of getting into position, but it's not moving forward yet as those hips begin to turn. Now everything starts moving forward. He starts accelerating. There's a good lateral flexion of his torso along with the rotation to power that cross. Lands with a big impact, obviously. big concussive impact, good follow through in the arc, lands with shearing force, which puts Roberto down. And we watch it one more time in fast motion. It's a big shot. Let's watch it one more time. Weights coming down, arms coming back, hips start to rotate, create stretch. He contracts on that stretch. Lateral body flexion with rotation, traditional type of cross mechanics. He lands in a good aggressive posture to help manage the recoil, right? Even when you're landing with this type of power, you have to allow your weight to go into and through your opponent. So he lands with a good impact, stable platform with his aggressive body posture, big impact, good follow through, and it's night-night for Roberto. Exciting fight. I wanted to go over a couple more examples of Tommy Hearns versus Pepino Cuevas, and we're going to see right here, big hip rotation powering the jab, which I see on YouTube a lot of guys demonstrating it without including hip rotation, okay? If you want to flick the jab out there, there's no better way to do it than with a hip flick. It's going to stretch those crossbody chains and really allow you to launch that jab very quickly. And you can see here, his weight's on his, it's kind of balanced, but on his back foot somewhat. And you're going to see him push off of that leg and pop that hip into rotation. He's using the back to forward momentum and the rotation to really snap the jab out there. And Tommy does it very, very well with his long limbs. He's got a great jab. Here's another great example of Tommy using hip rotation to power the jab. And you'll see he's lowered down. His center of gravity is a bit low, ready to explode. And he just pushes off right there with his leg. And look at that hip rotation. And it's still in the process of launching that arm out. However, when you stretch those crossbody chains, you can contract them more emphatically to launch that punch out there. Excellent, two excellent examples here. He lets that arm lag a bit, the hips are rotating, and right here the arm comes out. So he's really creating good stretch there, which allows him to contract on that stretch and shoot out that jab even faster. Let's take a look at this double jab. He goes to the body and then to the head with his jab. And I want to show you how he transfers his weight, catches it with the left leg, then pushes it back to his right leg, his rear leg, to launch the jab again. So you'll see him lower his center of gravity, lower his tissues, explode with that jab. It comes out. And look at his weight being caught by his lead leg. It prevents him from going too far forward, right? And then he puts his weight back on his right leg. His right leg catches up to his body position, and he's able to flick his hips into rotation one more time. Let's take another look at that. So big step with the jab to allow that proper weight transfer. It prevents him from going too far forward, right? His weight is still behind the leg. And then he catches his weight with his right leg and pushes off one more time for the double jab. Taking a real step with the jab rather than just marching in place like you see some people doing really allows you to transfer a lot of your weight and still be in a position to follow up very quickly, just like you see here. Let's take a look at this sequence here where Tommy throws a 1-2 and then pivots. And as he puts his weight down on his right leg after pivoting, he immediately launches a shot. He's staying ready to strike, which I talk about in other videos. And he's using excellent weight balance right here, as you'll see in a moment. So there's a 1, there's a 2, and look at him pivot. His weight comes down on his right leg, and immediately he's able to bounce right off of that, staying ready to strike as he's managing his position very well and launching a jab and a 2 that lands very well against Pepino. So when you're practicing your footwork, practice maybe with a partner or something, or around a heavy bag, or even around a double end bag. Practice staying ready to strike and using your balance and weight transfer in a way that sets you up for the next shot. Let's take a look at this slow-mo right hand from Tommy. You're going to see his weight is already somewhat lower. He's going to start the punch by driving his hips. The arm lags back a bit, and leading with the hips inherently creates forward momentum, some stretching of those crossbody chains that he then has to contract upon, which he does to launch this cross. And you'll see rotation and lateral side bending in his torso. And then his arm continues. So it's a series of movements. It's not all at once. Weight comes down, pushes off with that leg, hips are moving, now his torso starts moving, now his arm shoots out, lands a big shot against Pepino. And here's a very clear example of hip rotation preceding the rest of the movement. In a follow-up shot to that big right hand, his weight comes down, and look at his hips rotate there. Very clearly, obviously, leading with the hip rotation, creating stretch in his abs and those crossbody chains, the spiral line, which then he's able to contract upon with his torso right here, and then he's able to launch that arm out. Doesn't land as cleanly, but the mechanics are very sound. These kinds of mechanics are what let Tommy and other fighters land with power that looks almost effortless. If you've watched this far, this kind of breakdown clearly makes sense to you. You've seen how the mechanics work. Now the next step is feeling them in your own body and using them yourself to maximize your own speed, power, and fluidity. That's exactly what my program, the Power Punching Blueprint, is for. It rewires your movement patterns so these mechanics become effortless and intuitive. If you want to learn more, just head over to thepunchdoctor.com where you can buy the blueprint today. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.